show, telling all they know. Bringing stories in the many years they were on the road. Couple laughs on the good and bad memories. Chris became a senior. They getting pretty old. The Barnzy show, telling all they know. Bringing stories in the many years they were on the road. Couple laughs on the good and bad memories. Chris became a senior. They getting pretty old.
So there we go, Dave. Let me take this banner off. Happy Thursday to everybody. We have a very special guest today, a 7-time major champion. So I'll leave it to Dave to do the full-on introduction.
All right. And going back, including 2 USBC Queens, 3 U.S. Women's Open, the PBA Tournament of Champions. She's won all over the world and is also an outstanding commentator. How she got to be a country girl, being from New Jersey, I do not know. But let's welcome multiple major champion Kelly Kulick.
Hi, guys. Great to be here.
See, Dave makes that seem so simple of it.
Easy, right? I know. Like he's done it 20 years or something, or even longer.
A little bit longer than that, but thanks.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's fun. I've actually done a couple of times in the extra frame booth flow bowling booth with Dave. It's amazing how simple he can make just like cutting to the break seem.
Yeah. Well, Stu, you could pull it off because you have the accent. So if you ever try to expand, you've got the accent on your side.
Trust me. Yesterday, Tuesday, I attempted to do an introduction for Ray Lucier. It didn't work out so good. In fact, Ray came on and abused me for the introduction. So
no, my flow bowling story with Stu, I think it was we were in Delaware, and Phil Brylow, $2 Phil, says, "Hey, Stu's going to come in." I said, "Oh, great," because in all seriousness, you do an incredible job. So you sit down, and the first thing you say was, "I can't stay. I got to go drive Dom Barrett someplace." So that was my exposure with I got to have like 6 frames out of him, and he was off to chauffeur Dom Barrett someplace. So, one of these days we'll actually do a full couple of games together. Yeah,
that was the that was fun, wasn't it? Yeah, I'm the designated driver everywhere. Being the teetotaler, I get to be everybody's chauffeur everywhere. So
and you can always tell Stu's vehicle because he's got so many bowling balls in the car. The front end just rides like this, and the back end's down way low. Always can spot him anywhere on the highway.
Yeah, there's no leaving one at home.
No,
I don't die wondering. But I saw.
Well, let me ask both of you, because I was going to ask you both. What's the most bowling balls you've ever taken to a tournament? Any tournament, no matter if it's a major championship or a regional or whatever, can you remember?
I mean, at the World Series, me and Dom had our own section of the paddock. Like, by the end of it, we probably had, 80 balls maybe between us.
The roped off section. I might have had, when I finished the tour season, it's always our last one before we either donate them to the juniors and stuff. I'd probably say I have 18 or 20, 22 right around. I think 22 is the most I've ever had. Just getting towards the end of the season. And then when you can drive everywhere, like Stu said, you never want that what if question. So, yeah, I would say probably 22.
22. Wow. See, that's the difference. When you've got talent, you don't need as many bowling balls.
But that's baloney. Yeah, but Wes Malott had his own shelf on the truck. I mean, then you see Stu and Dom. Patrick Allen used to have a carload. When you could travel by your car, and then you never wanted to give them up until you knew you actually really didn't need it, and then you were kind of hesitant to part with it.
All right, let me reverse the question. Who drives you nuts because they bring the least amount of bowling balls? And you look at them like, really?
Oh, no such thing.
Jacob could walk around with 3.
Yeah.
But
Shannon Plahowski, left-hander on tour, 4 purple hammers, 2 reactive resin and a spare ball.
There you go. Somebody was at the regional this weekend. I just had 30 balls because I've been practicing, and I've got an F-150, so it's as easy to storm in there as it is the garage. It's the same temperature. So, I don't know if you've seen any of our shows, Kelly, but the people who watch our shows are very much in the same mold as me and Chris.
Okay.
So the first one of the first comments. Let's see the Kulick match already.
Yep. Yeah. You know, I faced him 3 times in PBA. Once at the Masters, once at a PBA event. I qualified 64th. He was the top lead. I've lost the course in Cleveland. But then the true and tried pride of it all was a TSC. So I'm 1 for 3 against him. It just happened to be the big one.
Yeah, the one that actually really matters.
You know, yeah.
So quick funny story though. So last summer was when we kind of we sort of adopted Barnes. He'd finally run out of friends, so we adopted Chris, and Chris traveled around with us, and we were at, I can't remember which stop it was, but anyway, we're sat in the house, right, and like it's me, Dom, and Oscar, and then Chris. Now, me and Dom drill a lot of balls, and Oscar makes us look like amateurs, right? So Chris is there, and we've like, and I think some of the reason why Chris doesn't drill balls is because he doesn't want to pay the $40. So I think that has to be taken into consideration a little bit. But anyway, we're talking to Chris about this one DCT ball he uses all the time, this red one.
Yep.
And Dom looks at him and says, "How many of those have you drilled?" Chris goes, "Oh, this is the first one." And Dom just looks at him like that. He's just like, "What?" And he goes, yeah, I really like this one, so I didn't really have the need for another one. And Dom turns to me, and he uses the phrase that we love the best in the world. He goes, "It's right. You should never meet your heroes." He goes, "It's only ever a disappointment."
All right, so Stu, every time we get a new release from Storm and Rotogrip, how many do you drill of each?
Well, I always drill the one, obviously, and then like, but I'll never drill less than probably 3. Like, unless it's like the low end balls, because I don't really use them very often.
Yeah.
Like, but if it's a high end ball, it would have to be really like I'd have to really dislike what it's doing on the lane to drill less than 2 or 3.
Gotcha.
Just and like with Rotogrip, I'm obviously going to drill like. If there's one of those that I don't like, I'm obviously going to drill more of them to find one I do like because, you know, we're going to be doing like, you know, we're supposed to be showcasing those balls and such. So, yeah, I mean, it's what we do. So.
Gotcha.
I guess you're a one and done if you don't like it.
Yeah, I'm kind of sort of that mentality too. There's a couple Asyms that I like them, but I don't love them when I know there's other stuff in the line. So if I haven't found, you know, the 2 drillings that I like where they match up, then I tend to disregard them and find other stuff. So yeah, I can't get. When the Code Black came out, I love the Code Black. The Code Red just wasn't my favorite. Everybody loved it. So it's just, you know, the different tilts and rotations that match up to it. Of course. You play with the friction of the surface and everything, trying to put it together. But if I have to try to make a ball work, then I want to take it out of my arsenal, not even worry about it at all. Yeah,
no, that makes sense. So, of all the things that you've done on tour, you've won on the ladies tour, you've won on the men's tour, you've won for Team USA, you even had a week as a bull rep on the men's tour.
Yeah.
Which you think was the most is the most challenging if you had to do one for a week?
Interestingly enough, you know, the bowling itself is individual as well as Team USA is a team concept, but the tour repping and many people had warned me about it, you know, going in the mentality of different players. When I'm introduced to the men, they know me for my ability on the lanes, but never my communication. And I know I really worked well with some and others I clashed with a little bit or didn't know how to communicate with them. So it's more of a mental preparation and really understanding that part of the game and how their emotions sometimes get involved. I would love another opportunity at it because I'd like to learn more from the ball reps themselves, from Dell and Jimmy and Tim and so forth to get better for it myself. But I would say by far the most challenging was sitting back and watching, trying to relate the picture that I saw to the player and then listening to the picture that they see and then trying to make it clear so it comes into focus that we both are on the same page. That was by far the biggest challenge.
Yeah, no, I think I would agree as well. Obviously, not having competed on the ladies tour, but like in general, I think it's really difficult because like if I was just to take the example of me trying to help my wife, it's really difficult to ignore your own thoughts when you're a good bowler, and that's what's really good, like really impressive that the tour reps can do. And like, for example, somebody like Doug Kent, who's a great bowler, at times gets frustrated when he's dealing with people because he'll be like, why don't you just throw it a bit slower?
Yeah.
Because Doug could do anything.
Yeah.
And it's really funny. I love chatting with Doug, and I say to Doug all the time, I go, there are just some times where I can't chat to you because you have the same ideas as I have, and that isn't working. You know what I mean? Like you see the lane kind of similarly, and that's why we're really lucky, I feel like, with Storm, because we have like a group of guys who just have different backgrounds. Like we have a Hall of Famer in Doug Kent who's helping us. We have Jim Callahan, who never bowled on tour in his life, but they're just as valuable to the team. They just occupy different roles and see things differently. And then, of course, you get someone like Sean Ryan, who bowled in college and who's a pretty decent bowler. And then he has a different view completely. And then on top of that, he's a lefty. So they're always a bit like weird.
It is challenging, yeah, especially when you like Matt McNeil, left-handed. So how do you take information from him? And wow, if you just sit down and listen to him talk, the guy is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to layouts and videos and YouTubes. It's even like being with Dave in the booth. You know, we see the picture in front of us, and then we're trying to relate it to the audience, you know, the fans tuning in. It's how I can make it understandable to them so they see what I'm seeing and relatable as well. And like you said, Doug, you've got a lot of personalities. You've got a lot of intellectual information in their brains and portraying it to them while they're in the heat of the battle. You know, it was the funnest week I've had and the hardest week I've had by far. You know, again, the men were very welcoming to me. They opened arms and everything. Like I said, I would like more weeks to spend with them just to learn that personality gap that I might have had, but I'd always like to learn. So if they would have me back, I would love to be there just to even learn or be helpful in any way possible, even if I was a gopher. But yeah, that's the challenge.
In Kelly's defense, she had one of the more tougher weeks. We bowled in Lubbock, which is I love going up to Lubbock. And one of the reasons why I love going to Lubbock is because the cross is very challenging.
Yeah.
Like the lane to lane is, you kind of need to know what you're doing. Like you need to have been there a couple of times to keep track of that.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we had 2 different lane patterns.
Yeah.
On each lane. And yeah, it get messy fast when it's like that. So it wasn't like she got dropped off in the kiddie end. They dropped her off in the middle of the North Sea and said, good luck.
The deadliest catch, you know, torrential rain, hurricane winds and everything. Yeah, you know, Michael was on that show and, you know, he went with his comfort. He wanted to hit it more. Dell thought he should have slowed it down. I said, go with your strength. Prather should have made the show, and he struggled on that one pair. Stu, you shot 250 on it, and he shoots 150. And he moved left, and he should have – I know, and it's like –
And he still crushed me.
Yeah, crazy, you know. So there's Barnes was the best thing, though. Chris goes, Kelly, I just need to know when they move in. So every now and then I say, hey, Chris, they all jumped left already. And he would just jump in and boom like that. So, again, finding those personalities to work with, what they want to know from you and what they don't want to know from you is the key.
So we have a couple of people who have been saying hello. Larry says he loves him some Kelly.
Hi, Larry.
Hassan is starstruck by Kelly. One of our regulars, Tammy, says hello from Dayton. Here's a good question. Love Jones says, in general, for those who don't have access to lots of balls, would you recommend multiple layouts or keeping it similar with a couple of layouts? Keeping it simple, sorry.
I think simplicity is best because the cover is the most manipulative part of the ball. So if you like the 1 or 2 layouts, you know, usually a pin up or a pin down, you can't have holes anymore. So I like to keep the simple and just have maybe 4 or 5 balls if that's not a ton, and be able to have the surface changes in between those. So yeah, for me especially.
And then Kendall says, of the rotogrip equipment, which asymmetrical ball would you recommend for basically a medium speed, medium rev player?
That's a great question. Rotogrip right now has that nuclear cell out, that UFO. If you brought the service up, is pretty good. I tend to favor more of the pearlized asymmetric bowling balls because again, the cover wants to clear the fronts when they break down quickly. 13 to 50 miles an hour or rev rate, you're not going to generate a lot of ball speed, so it's not going to have a lot of directional change either if the rev rate's medium. But I would probably say that nuclear cell. And we have a new one that just is going to be released soon. I think it's a really big core, though, so Stu might be able to adapt more on that. But in the past, I'm trying to think, Stu, what of our...
Well, the Fused was pretty good. Hypercell Fused, that was pretty popular. And then I like the Skid also. But kind of like you're saying, the nuclear cells kind of replaced both of those.
Yeah.
But, I mean... If you wanted to venture into the storm side, I think the astrophysics is pretty much universally liked. Pretty continuous R2S cover on it as well. So kind of know what you're getting from that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. The astrophysics was a lot cleaner, not as sharp as comparison to the other asymmetric bowling balls. The Hypercell Skid was by far one of my favorites. And unfortunately, it's an older ball, so it's definitely not in the line anymore. But you can definitely go back and as a Storm staffer, though, I always favored the rotogrip base sims over the Storm. I just found more versatility with them. So for me,
except the lock.
The lock. I didn't mind the lock. I like the lock.
So Dave, Kelly has this one ball that she's used. Like she's always got one.
I have one left in the basement.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
So, Dave, why don't you give us a little bit of a history of you and Kelly on the broadcasts and, how you've seen her develop her skills on that side of it?
Well, I go back with Kelly to the big year 2010. We talked about briefly the TFC. That was also the year that I broke into women's major championships with Chris as my analyst, and Kelly won the Queens. Kelly won the U.S. Open that year. And that as great a year maybe as any bowler in modern times has ever had. You can add up. It doesn't matter. Those are three major championships that she won. So that's the first time I ever met her was when she was kicking everybody's butt on the lanes. And then there was a couple of times, I think somehow she didn't make a show and she was brought in to work with me. And I think the biggest thing that Kelly and someone who never had been on the air before is, and Chris had this problem, when they're on camera, they're a little nervous because they're concerned that people can see them. As soon as they put the headset on and nobody can see them, the analysis is just like the two of you were just talking now. It's natural because they're in a comfortable position. You don't, and I think that's with Kelly. Now I see her when I was watching the women's telecast and when we did the junior gold together last year, and the improvement is striking. Now on camera, completely at ease, allows her personality to come out. And then of course she puts the headsets on and her knowledge of the game is as great as anybody's, and her ability to get that out. The biggest trick for any analyst in any sport is that you, Stu, and you, Kelly, and Chris, and Randy, and all these folks know 5 billion times more about the game than I do. I've picked up a little bit over the years, but what you guys know.
Yourself short, Dave.
Well, I mean, just some of the language you're talking about right now, I would be struggling to explain that if somebody asked me, what were they talking about? I would have a hard time with that. So the struggle is trying to make sure that everybody understands what you're saying, and not just because in bowling, you're always looking for new viewers. Mm-hmm. You also realize that there are some hardcore bowlers who are hanging on your every word and are understanding the language you're using. So the trick is to meld the two together. And again, I think this is where Kelly has just made leaps and bounds of an improvement, is that she's doing such a great job now of explaining it that at a level that the serious bowler can understand, and somebody you might go, oh, let me turn this on, and they understand what's going on. And that's what I like about it. I was just so happy to see that. And then again, junior gold is a challenge in its own.
Long day.
Well, it's a long day for one reason. Each player takes 2 minutes in between shots. Am I right?
Oh God, some of them even longer.
We timed, and we weren't live, Stu, so we had they had the luxury of editing that stuff out. even really good bowlers, and I don't want to rip anybody publicly. I mean, people who are going to be professionals, there's no question. Even they are taking 90 seconds, 2 minutes with these rituals.
Don't get me started, Dave. This isn't even a junior gold thing. Like, I have a lot of these arguments with the guys on the professional tour. I think that half of our issues, and I think that it's prevalent in all the tours, is bowling just takes too long. Like, so we have to play less games because you literally can't be in the bowling center for 17 hours a day. Well, unless it's the US Open and USBC come up with a different format or whatever. But realistically, we're taking way too long. Like, an 8-game block should take 4 hours. A 6-game block's now taking 4 hours. It's insanity. And it's fun because people think it's because I want to bowl quickly or I'm a quick player that's why it is. And some of it is true. But at the same time, I also understand and hear all of the players going, oh, I wish we could bowl more games. Well, hurry the F up. Like, it blows my mind that it takes so long to bowl. And it's, like I say, it's a disease on all the tours. I mean, the ladies' tours. And the problem with it is with slow play, I getting on the soapbox a little bit, is there's no disadvantage to the person who bowls slow. They disadvantage the entire field. Mm-hmm. And they're ready to go their next game because they're never waiting. So there's no incentive to ever bowl quicker. So it's not going to change.
The thing I worry about, and I also want to bring up one other thing about Kelly too when we finish this little thing up, but the thing I worry about is these are all young bowlers that range, Kelly, from 11 down to guys and men and women who are collegiate bowlers.
Yeah, up.
Hey,
so
29. I guess they did have reception. We were reading about Linda and Chris having reception for the show today.
Yeah, well, at least
driving to Stephen F. Austin.
But Linda's a good example of somebody who doesn't mess around.
Yeah.
No.
Linda knows what she's going to do. The pins haven't moved. You know, they're still there. So she knows they're not going anywhere. And if she understands what she wants to do with her shot, she just walks up and she throws it. And then she'll adjust accordingly. You know, but she's a good example of the thing that I'm worried about is that with all the coaching that's going on, these young bowlers are getting coaching, and maybe these coaches are encouraging, okay, get in your routine before you throw your shot, get in your routine. At some point, those who are good enough to take on the Stews and the Kellys of the world are going to go out on this tour and find that that's not going to cut it. And there's going to, you know, and they're going to be left without their routine. What do they do then?
What did you think, Kelly, when you made one of your first shows and then suddenly, like, it's amazing how you don't take that much time, but suddenly you're aware of the shot clock.
Oh, absolutely. And it's right there off to the right side. So you see these bright red neon lights staring you down. And I've gotten a shot clock violation once. It was at the TSC. But the rules are simple. When the ball comes out of the ball return, I'm walking up to the ball return as the person is walking back from their spare shot. So I do have those extra seconds. My second shot on the open lane is a little bit differently because it's starting when my ball comes out. So yeah, I have to be quick and ready to go. I think, Dave, you hit a highlight too. Many of the younger adults and the younger kids are getting coached in between every single shot. And it's almost they need that guidance when it should just be a flow of the game. It's like, hey, okay, you don't have to look back and acknowledge after every shot. You play your game, you go with your gut feeling, and you do what you learned how to do. And I think they get caught up in that routine and comfort zone and not having the shot clock. And did I do it right? Am I okay? And do I need to move? And it's like, hey, be yourself, be responsible, take ownership of your shot and what you're doing and go with it. So yeah, it's I know they've talked about it, Junior Gold. It's got something they have to bring it up and make it more aware. And the women's tour, I mean, there's 5 on a pair. We start at 9 o'clock. We're getting done at 2:30. We get an hour and 15 minutes for lunch. It's too long, you know, but they're trying to fill in as many women as they can in a 32 lane center.
Yeah, it's a fine balance. So we're gonna head back over to the questions section. We got some cool questions coming in. First of all, Linda, double K, superstar right off the lane. Great line dancer, super fun lady. Hi, Kelly.
Thanks, Linda. We miss her presence on the Leafs tour. She was, you know, God, what an ambassador she's been. So
takes no
great to
prisoner.
see you.
What is the most important change female bowlers have gone through in the last 5 to 10 years? I think they've developed a lot of ability and tools they didn't have 10 to 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's a great question, Martin. I mean, look at the coaching that's available now. You go back 15, 20 years that you had 3 major head coaches in the world. You had Sid, you had Fred, you had some others developing in the USA bowling program. Now you've got, Kegel, you've got the ITRC, you've got Detroit and their area. So we're expanding our coaching, and now the kids who once started as a Saturday junior program for fun are now indulging themselves and putting themselves in 100% at the age of 8, 9, 10 of developing their skills and tools and learning at a younger age. I think Tiger was responsible for that. I think Serena Williams was responsible for that. And then the Jason Belmonte, the two-handed bowling, how it revolutionized the game and brought more awareness to all these kids now at a younger age have more power. So they're learning at a faster rate. And I say this all the time. I hate to keep repeating it, but how much did you learn from Google and YouTube videos? I didn't have that at 15 or 20 years old. So the information is out there readily available. Just like that, you get to see the shows. You have great commentary and people relating the information to you. So the tools, the coaching, the technology, the oils and the lane synthetic, I mean, all of it together has just brought the world of bowling at a much higher elite level.
Kristen says, are you still teaching line dancing? She said, I watched a few of them a couple of months ago, I guess on the Storm.
Yeah.
If you go on the Storm's Facebook page,
Yeah.
you have a look through the videos. We got a couple of, was it Tuesday nights with Kelly, I think?
Yeah.
She says maybe in the future you could get a bunch of PBA players. I have 2 that I think you could definitely get. I think you could get Country Ronnie and Country EJ. I think they'd be more than happy. They'd probably find the music for you.
Yeah, I think Ronnie would love it. I started teaching a dance workshop on Tuesday nights a few towns over in Nutley. So I'm teaching country line dancing. And, we say country line dancing, but it's line dancing. It's all genres of music. It's different tempos. It's waltz. It's tango. It's a lot of variety. And it's just great to be on the dance floor, socializing, exercising together, learning the patterns. I would love to teach more dancing, and I love doing it. I really enjoy it.
Larry said, I would like to know who Kelly's toughest competitor was and who seems to get up to bowl her.
Larry, I think one of the greatest bowler of all time on the ladies tour is Liz Johnson. What she's done, how many titles she's has her way she won on the men's tour, and then she made the show even earlier against Wes Malott and Tommy Jones. Just bowling around the world. She's still bowling everywhere. So when I bowl Liz is one of my very good friends. I love her dearly. She's fantastic. We get along great. But I know when I show up, I need my A++ game. You can't miss against her. And I think she feels the same way against me. You can't give her an open frame, because by far on the women's tour, and I think of both tours, I think the 2 greatest closers of all time of a match are Liz Johnson and Patrick Allen. Patrick Allen, every time he needed a clutch strike, he always showed up in the 10th frame. So by far, Liz is the best of all time in my eyes. And my game has got to be tops when I'm against her.
What amazes me about Liz, and she's one of my all-time favorites, and I had the pleasure of calling her win on the men's tour, which was really a big thrill for me, is we ran some video of her from, I don't know, Kelly, 20 years ago. Yeah. I swear to God, her shot line, nothing has changed. It's the same shot. She just doesn't miss.
She doesn't. And I've said this before, the best thing about her game is her simplicity. It doesn't change her very much. And people think, oh, she can't play inside. She does. She's won from playing 20, but her angles are very tight. She's a very much straight angled player on the ladies tour. And she has good ball speed. She has great rotation. Everything seems to match up between all 3 together. The speed, the axis rotation, and the tilts just all come together. And she's allowed to play straighter a lot longer. And with our arsenal, she just goes down the line of balls of what to go through. She, like Stu, she doesn't very much get to the low end stuff, but when she needs it, it's there, and she's unstoppable.
Without blowing smoke, so to speak, that's actually, you brought up an interesting point about how Liz plays straighter, and to me, that actually leads to why I think you winning the TOC was most impressive. Because not the easiest, but the way that ladies are usually successful on the men's tour is that they play a part of the lane with Norm Duke, because there ain't anybody else over there. So when Liz won on the Scorpion, she played a part of the lane. Nobody else played. What was harder for you is you don't really have that skill set to because your rev rate's higher and everything else. So you were actually playing much closer to how the guys were playing the lanes. You obviously didn't have the same rev rate as a lot of the guys. So I actually think that made it more impressive because you didn't really have a trick to just win. You just outbowled them to make the show. So that was what I thought was most impressive about that win.
Oh, thank you, Stu. Yeah, I can get left, but even the first year on the men's tour, I considered it being successful in a way that I hit the pocket a lot. My carry percentage. Once you get past 20 for me, like Stu says, my ball speed's a bit slower, my rev rate's higher, and going against Marshall or Jason, but not even those guys then, Mika and Tommy Jones and all the other guys and Stu, it's very difficult to strike as much velocity as they create with the pins in the back with their ball speed and rev rate. So I hit the pocket a lot. I just got 9 more often than they did.
Yeah, I mean, it's because a lot of people think that the ladies with the highest rev rates are the ones who actually have the best chance of competing. And I can't speak for all the guys, but I can speak for myself. I think they have the least chance of competing on the men's tour because they're in a part of the lane. Like, there are lots of great bowlers on the men's tour. Like, I use him quite often as an example, but like Nathan Bohr is a fantastic bowler. But Nathan gets trapped because his rev rate isn't high enough to move way left with those guys. And that's what's most amazing about Duke. Duke finds ways with his hand or whatever to be able to be that little bit further right and a little bit closer to friction, but to be able to do that is like incredible. Like 1 out of like a million being able to do that. And so that's why I think that the ladies who actually, like Danielle has had some success on the men's tour, and she's able to stay like kind of away from the part of the lane that the guys want to beat up. And if you can find your line or like your advantage in that part of the lane, you're probably not going to get bothered that much, because even if Danielle has a lot to hit and like she's got great reaction, there's a really small percentage of the guys who can get their rev rate down to be able to play the lane like she's playing it. It's a numbers game. Like, if you can play in a part of the lane, like, it's basically when Norm plays way to the right, it's the same as when Belmo plays way to the left. Belmo's in fresh oil all the time. Well, when Norm's able to play way to the right, most of the time he's in fresh oil because nobody else wants to try it or are able to try it. So that's how I see it anyway. I mean, just from the success that a lot of the ladies have had, I think that coming to mind, you're the only lady I've seen that had success bowling kind of with the guys rather than, away from them and finding their trick. So,
yeah, I would say in the 5 years the ladies tour has been out there, there's been a few, I call them hook players in the top 5 or so, but majority of the women that are successful are the straighter players. Shannon's got high tilt, high ball speed. Liz, high ball speed, straighter players. Clara, I think Maria was in the top 5 this year. Liz Colkin, she's got a good firm ball speed. Jordan, Richard also as well. She's gonna, once she finds her niche, she's gonna be unstoppable as well. But I would agree, Stu, the straighter you can go, you carve out less of the lane. I do see Daria, once she kind of figures out her game and where it fits, she's going to match up and destroy him even more as well, same as Verity. But sometimes the straighter is greater. Go back to that expression. It really does make it true.
I want to go back to something, Stu, we haven't talked about, and I didn't want to let Kelly leave without discussing her win in Reno outdoors at the U.S. Open. And I was there for that with Chris, a tape show that ran 40 minutes long because of all of the controversy regarding what happened to the lane conditions outdoors. So we went from going at the National Bowling Stadium, and the ladies just shattered that place because of their skill. And now we get 5 great bowlers. I mean, Missy Parkin's there, Kelly's there, Shannon is there. And all of a sudden, by the end, they were practically taking marbles and flicking them with their thumb. It was the only way to get the ball to react. Was that the most difficult win you ever had at any level?
Yeah, absolutely, because we've never been outdoors before. So whenever you have new elements introduced to the game, you're guessing as you're going along. You're adapting, mid-frame after each frame is done. So you didn't know if someone was going to speak, if you're going to hear a car horn, if you got the smells of the food cooking behind you. We had to pause for the mayor to put the people back up into the parking garage and everything. Elements we've never seen before. What happens if it starts to rain? Where do we go? Yeah. So it was interesting. And, I know we had a meeting, and Dave and John Lasita was running that event. Do we re-oil after each match? And it would strictly be an advantage for the person coming off. I remember Linda that day, she made the show. She's got shoulder issues. She went and had a cortisone shot. Yeah. And she comes back and bowls a TV show for the U.S. Open. I mean, just amazing what she did that day. And it was like 92 degrees in the afternoon. Then all of a sudden the sun went down, this wind tunnel came. And, I joked, but I wasn't trying to look pretty. I was trying to look plastered, just like I am now. The hair back, everything, anything I could do to justify what I needed to do to be successful on the lanes. And I know I don't throw it fast. I'm working on that now. But I think because of my older age and my experience with working with Dick Ritker and what they did in the 60s and the 70s and only oiling the lanes once, I just kind of had an idea of what I needed to do. And I played the numbers. I played the odds. And that's when I went straighter. But yeah, Dave, I mean, I have the vial of sand in my office that Kegel gave me that they cleaned off the lanes, and unfortunately they were shot. Those 4 lanes, so 2 pair, they had to throw them away. So it was awesome though. I mean, wow, what an experience.
We had interesting. I mean, there were people hanging off those garages too. I know you know the area very well. By the sign, that was the whole point. And do you think it was good for the sport, Kelly, to go through an experience like that?
Anytime you get to showcase it on live television and bring awareness to it, it's great. I think the scores didn't really help us to elevate what our skill really could be. I think the highlights from showing inside the stadium earlier, because I led the tournament by a good amount of pins, and so many women, what they did to make the show, and it is the pinnacle of bowling, the U.S. Open. So we brought awareness to it. Steve Johnson was the president of BPAA and everything, and it was great to do it. It was Reno, the biggest little city. We have the stadium there. I hope we gain more viewers by that as well. And, people are watching it from their hotel room. So many different angles to see. It always brings awareness and put women's bowling, back in the spotlight again. So maybe it was part of the reason why we did come back with a tour. Could have been.
Well, I will tell you this, and I won't mention the name because the show was recorded, so somebody had to go edit that. And because of the conditions, there weren't not a lot of strikes. And one of the bowlers saw me later after the show was done, and she was really upset at the way that it came out because she didn't throw the ball particularly well. No one threw the ball well. It was really I remember going to Kelly and saying, "Congratulations on winning Survivor Reno."
Yeah,
because that's what it looked like. It was like going through a jungle that you'd never been in before. And she was upset about that. And I said, look, think of the poor guy who had to sit in that truck and edit out 40 minutes, some of which was the conversation that Kelly mentioned about oiling or not oiling, which was a very important decision. And I think the right one was to let it go. And Kelly had the game to adjust. But yeah, some people were actually mad about that. And it was like, and we're fine now. This person and I are way past it. But it was a very difficult environment. It's the only times I ever remember going on the talkback and asking for a box of Kleenex because we were getting a lot of this dust ourselves.
Really?
And yeah, getting in our eyes and getting in our nose and just some of this. And it wasn't like a swirling desert tornado or anything, but some of the dust that was certainly affecting the athletes was affecting everybody who was there. On the other hand, I wouldn't have traded it for the world. I thought it was a great idea and still do.
I think the one good thing about that show was that nobody changed spots on the step ladder.
Yeah, that was it. We finished in our respective places.
And then it was win one, lose, win one, lose. I think – I don't know, maybe you can talk about this, but I think that the thing I would have found most challenging wasn't actually the conditions. It was the mental aspect of leading a tournament by so much and then it basically just being a crapshoot circus. Like, because usually it's a crapshoot, like, because it's the TV show or whatever. But now it's basically like almost like you might have been playing skeetball, like for the US Open, because like that wasn't really anything to do with like
what is bowling
and like how we do it.
Yeah.
Like some of the ladies might have been better just like throwing a house ball down the middle because of the way the conditions were, like almost trying to bowl on it. And so that's what I thought was very impressive, that you were able to like put away that part of, because everybody has that part of them that feels sorry for themselves. Like, and it's how loud you let that voice be. And that was the impressive part of it. Like, you were able to take care of business and not worry about it. And yeah, Linda on that amazing atmosphere and great pictures.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's great. I never bowled in the dark before. Nighttime with the stars above me. I mean, never had that experience. So, and Stu, the year I bowled in the Texas Stadium, again, I led it by so much. And Linda was on that show. I sat on the show because I wanted to practice between the frames, and between the humidity and everything, I think back, well, what could I have done differently? Maybe I should have sat back off the show. Maybe I should have just gone out a different time. So there's always going to be that what if in the back of your mind. But like Dave said, in that moment, it was a crapshoot. And like you said, Stu, everybody finished in the respectable places that they qualified. So that was really good about it. And it's a big prize fund. I mean, $50,000. That was huge for me.
No,
huge.
I mean, it's huge for everybody. Like, in that,
it's life changing.
Yeah, except for that two-handed guy from down under.
No, he tips that much in a year, or does he? Is he a good tipper, Stu?
I don't think he's a bad one. Put it that way.
He's average.
So,
he's average.
Well, anybody who's not American, we find the concept of tipping very strange.
It depends what the exchange rate is at the time.
Good point.
So Linda says that should be referred to as the Dust Bowl.
Yeah.
Hey, Martin is asking, have you seen any two-handed female bowlers?
I have seen a handful, actually, in the SYC events I've seen. I know over in Japan, when the men go over to do their little tour, there's some women over there trying to get better at the two-handed bowling. But I have seen a few in the SYC events, younger girls. A few of them are pretty good. There's one young lady from Kentucky. I think we had 3 last week, or the last SYC event I was in Nashville. So there are some up-and-comers coming through. Will they dominate the tour? I don't know. It depends on the guidance and coaching that they get. But with how, again, it's changed the younger generation, and with Jason and Osku and so many others, the list just keeps growing and growing. Now, Justin Bone is one-handed and two-handed. Watching him do both is amazing. Simply, wow. So I think eventually we'll see some, for sure. I just don't know. I don't know if it's anatomy makeup that makes it different, or just not jumping into it as much as the younger boys do. But maybe. I'm hopeful for one.
Here's a coach from England saying in Europe there are some female two-handers. I've actually seen one girl from Sweden who was quite successful in the youth. Sherry is quite passionate about the pros speaking up, about opening centers. Why has the panel done support centers opening? Well, Sherry, I actually live in Texas, and I helped out with Mel's. We did some videos about what the social distancing protocols were going to be. You can check it out on the Beef and Barnzy page. It's up there. If anybody has any solutions of what you'd like us to try and do, that's fine. But when we're not really residents of that state, it makes it a little challenging for us to get involved. I guess that to the people out there might sound like excuses, but I guess it is. But at the same time, I don't really know what we as a individual are supposed to do. We don't really have the same profile as a golfer in that regard. So, I'm sure if tennis was shut and Serena Williams said something, people would run to listen. It's a little difficult for the bowlers. We don't have quite the same platform. So I didn't want to necessarily completely avoid that question, but I don't know what the answers are. I saw in Lansing yesterday, the bowling centers and one of my sponsors, Turbo, went to the State House, and they were protesting in front with signs. So hopefully that's going to help Michigan in their challenge to reopen. I know that I don't know 100% all the details, but I believe the Illinois BPAA sued the state, and they got their opening situation changed. So that was hopefully something that can be used for some of the other states as like a template. So yeah, I mean, we all hope bowling comes back, and yeah, I think that the main thing is when it does come back that people respect the rules that the proprietors have to play to. Wearing masks, doing what they ask you to do, trying to support the center as much as possible, because, it's a long road back.
Well, it's funny. There's the closest bowling center to me has been shuttered this whole time, but golf courses are open. I'm sure they're open where you guys are. That was one of the first athletic endeavors to open, and one of the courses I play, I can actually see the parking lot of the bowling center just empty all the time while I'm making a turn through a couple of different holes. The problem where I live in South Florida is we've been just hammered with this virus, and it's just I don't know if people have made it a priority. Because we're just trying to figure out what to do with schools, and I think they've finally come up with a process. But the biggest thing, to Stu's point, is when they do open, you've got to comply, and that's another big thing in Florida. We've got some people who are proud of not complying, and that causes problems too. So I would just urge you. It's great to make the noise, and I hope you do make noise. But please, when it does happen, you've got to stick to the rules. Otherwise, they're going to slam the door on your fingers again, so to speak.
So, Kelly, I know you didn't want me to do it, but I can't. I can't not do it. For anybody who's been under a rock for the last, decade, here it is. Kelly's 10th frame. This was voted the third most memorable moment in PBA history, Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah.
That's pretty lofty territory right there.
Now we're going to find out if Chris is watching.
Chris was actually quite funny when he shared the post I made for this show. He said, "I think I'm going to have to get some protective gear to watch this show in." Yeah, Kelly looking around. Chris, it's really not that difficult. How did you only bowl a $190?
He had so much over under that day in practice. I mean, I watched his reaction a little bit, and he just the whole week he bowled so fantastic and everything, and he's won the TSC before. People at first when this occurred, I mean, I won fair and square. Chris has been an absolute gentleman, and I know he took a lot of flack for it for a little while and everything, but how he handled it the whole week long and afterwards, and his commentary since then and during, it's just he is truly a classy guy, not only on the lanes but off the lanes as well. And I mean, his expression right there, it's just I was locked. I matched up really well. Everything was right, as Randy said that day, and but he was a really great sport. Congratulated me. It was. I just keep saying it was a fairy tale day. It was a magical day.
I have a fun it's kind of a confession, right? So I remember this, or fairly much like it was yesterday. Me and Tina were watching the show. We were in Vegas, and I have to be honest. At the time, in self-interest, I was rooting for Chris in this match. And I'll explain that in a minute. Now, Tina was literally punching me every time. I'm like, come on, Barnes, let's go. Tina's like, no. And part of the reason was that this was my first year on tour. And at the time, we had an exempt tour. And this was sort of towards the back end of the season. Well, Kelly wasn't in the number to be exempt. But if you won a title, you were exempt. And then the points number went up. So in my eyes, I'm like, Chris is my bowling hero. So I'm like, come on, Barnes, get this done for me. Don't make this number go up one more spot. And then, of course, Kelly bowled 260 and Chris bowled 190. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, Barnes. Like, seriously? Like, you couldn't just one time help me out here? Like, really? So that was one of the first times that it became a regular thing because Tina is a huge Peyton Manning fan and I'm a Tom Brady fan.
Love Peyton.
So this was one of our first real sporting events where we were definitely on completely the opposite sides of watching the event. So a lot of our friends find it very funny when me and Tina are not on the same team with our sports teams. It's a little sad now. We don't really have one of those rivalries anymore. Certainly not as passionately anyway. I think if I told her that I would decided to support the Sooners or something, then I probably wouldn't survive the game. Tina would just stab me in the throat, and that'd be the end of it. She'd be like, I don't know what happened. I just came downstairs and he had a knife right in the middle of his throat. I don't know what could have happened. But yeah, that's about the only thing that Tina is really super passionate about now is her Longhorns.
Okay.
So, yeah. Now Peyton's retired. It's not the same.
He was supposed to marry me, just didn't know it. I was in love with Peyton, just his etiquette and everything, but he's taken.
There you go. You and Tina are on the same team.
Yeah.
It's there you go. There's one of our friends from Phoenix. You'd not be on this planet anymore if I was cheering for the Sooners. So I think that we've come to that point of the show where we're going to do our 10 questions with Kelly Kulick.
Oh, 10 questions.
Yes,
Yeah.
And in typical Chris fashion, these 10 questions take up 3 pages. So I have to choose. So I'm going to try to come up with a little different ones. Since we were kind of discussing favorites, Kelly, what if you had one superpower? What would it be?
I get this question a lot. I never have the same answer twice. I'd say teleporting. I'd like to go back in time and ahead and see what it's like, to see where we came from in the history. By teleporting.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
So Dave, just quickly, Chris was watching. Great. Linda, walked in. Chris, congrats again. He stood and clapped. He says he's still got flat out bowled.
What else is he going to say?
Chris, Stu rooting for me. ... First time ever.
Yeah, he has to say that she flat out bowled him. She did.
Oh dear. So anyway, sorry.
That's
back
okay.
to our scheduled programming.
Kelly, if you could have dinner with one person who is either alive or dead, who would that person be?
Unfortunately, I didn't get to meet my mother's father. He passed away when she was 21. So I would have liked to meet my grandfather.
Okay, that's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, never met him. Yeah, I would love to meet him.
Well, a favorite hobby, we already have that figured out, and you're dancing. So let's go with I like this question a lot. I asked it the other day. First thing you notice about people when you meet them?
Ooh. Wow. That's a good question.
It is a good question. I
think it's knowing how confident or unconfident they are in themselves. I'm very introverted at first. I'm very quiet until I get to know you. So I'm always a little standoffish trying to read a person's personality. So I'll notice if they're a loud person, a soft person, if they have some different mannerisms. So I guess I just try to notice their personality and what seems to be their most confident part of their personality, and then how I can maybe adapt myself to connect with them. So does that make sense?
Excellent. Cool. Yes, it does. Our fourth frame, what have you learned about yourself during this whole quarantine pandemic period? Anything different that maybe has changed?
The brain is a very powerful organ. It's just not knowing how to manage your time. I think because I'm still single, I've managed a lot of home projects and managing my time that way, but finding things to stay busy with, researching. I finally learned all the stuff my phone does for once. Now I can actually put songs on my phone and take them off, so managing time, but hey, you got to pump yourself up even when no one else is there around you to do it. So really mentally, it's where all these people are suffering from depression and what to do in quarantine time, how much you relate to phone calls and texts. But yeah, and then thank God for Google, because I recaulked my bathroom, I painted walls, I've set up some stuff in the garage. So I've become very handy during quarantine time.
Most spontaneous thing you've ever done?
There's no such thing. I haven't done anything spontaneous. I'm boring. I can't think of one thing. I mean, I would love for somebody to call me up and say, hey, we're going to the island. Let's go. I'm like, okay. I can't say. I committed to going to Alaska on a cruise next year. That's spontaneous.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, my cruise got canceled this year, so I was like, we booked it already a year out, so maybe that's spontaneous.
I did that last year, and it was absolutely fantastic. One of the best things I've ever done. So you'll love that.
Everyone who's gone says it's been the best thing, so I can't wait for that.
Yeah, you'll enjoy the hell out of that. Most famous person in your phone?
Most famous person in my phone? Well, I've got you, and I've got Dave Ryan. I really, Christine Brennan, I think I still have her in my phone. She does a lot of commentary on ABC and USA, writes the articles. She might be the most famous. Other than that, unfortunately, yeah.
This is an interesting one. This is a classic Barn stir it up question. I didn't ask the other day. Name a bowler most likely not to return your text. Maybe they're just not that type of person. Is there somebody that is
the kids would phrase this, Dave? Who's most likely to ghost you?
Exactly.
Who's most likely to ghost me? I don't have anybody. I really.
You're good. All right.
I don't. I know. I can't.
Until COVID, my answer to this was Jim Callahan, but now he's all over it. He responds quite well.
You don't need him now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'd have to think about that one a little bit harder and a little bit longer.
That's okay. That's all right. Here's one. 8th frame. Most irrational fear.
Rational fear?
Irrational.
Irrational?
Well, even a fear is fine. We'll take either one.
Well, give me an example of an irrational fear.
An irrational fear would be like the exit door on the airplane just suddenly opens and you get sucked out into the sky. That's an irrational fear.
An irrational fear? Okay, this is a true fear. Gas scares me. In the appliances, like in the stove.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you turn it on and I'm afraid the spark and there might be a gas explosion.
I know somebody who was literally blown up in that situation and barely survived. A chef, no less.
Really?
Situation.
Yeah. I turned on the stove the other day and it started humming and I turned it off. I don't know where. I was like, oh God, there's a hum. That's my irrational fear.
There's a hum. That's funny.
This is a bowling question that I really like. One shot in your career you would like to take back.
I know a game I'd like to take back, a whole entire game. One shot. Last year on tour, I mean, I was in to make the show and they just changed and I threw it terrible. I just wasn't on TV or anything that I could think of, but
that shows how successful you've been over time, because I'm not joking. Like the guys, and maybe it's just that you have a much better mentality to it. But the guys, it's like burnt in their retinas. Like Norm Duke, we asked him one shot you'd like back. He's like 1987 against Mike Edwards on. I don't know how I did it. I just threw it out the window. Unbelievable. I might as well have burnt the title. It was just amazing. Like he was like bang. Even Baker was on. He hasn't really bowled competitively in years. And he's like, oh, yeah, it was the tournament in Indianapolis against Mike Albee or whoever it was. And he's like, I got the first one in the 10th. And he goes, I used to be pretty good under the gun. And he goes, and I still can't remember what happened. I just know I didn't strike. He goes, I don't remember any part of the shot. He goes, I was just blank.
Well, there is one, now that I think of it, is the Players' Championship against Stephanie. It was the 8th frame or 9th, and I don't know why, but I 7-10 a shitload a lot, if I can say that on TV.
Yeah.
I'm also telling you, it drives me nuts. So the 9th frame, I think I 7-10 against Stephanie or 7th frame, and I need to switch balls. And I made the switch, and then I struck, and she struck out in the 10th to beat me. You know, they collapsed in. And so, yeah, I would take that one back for sure.
All right, last one. What one thing would you tell rookie Kelly? You get to run into yourself as you're first coming on as a professional. What advice would you give yourself?
Oh, so many people said, don't change your game. You know, don't try to fix things. But you get in that mentality on tour where you're working with ball reps, you're working with coaches, that you're just trying to tweak it and make it better. And you make it better one year, and then the next year what you were good at no longer matches up because you try changing something new. So I would say, you know, listen to yourself and, don't try to change too much because you're good for a reason. I don't know if that makes much sense, but a lot of people said, don't change a lot. My push away went really far away from my body, and now it's closer, but still drifts away a little bit. I got to be a better straighter player than I am a hook player now. So, you learn as you go along, but just find one. I guess the advice to that would be find one and only one person to trust.
Cool.
And go from there.
There we go. Well, that was 10 questions with Kelly Kulick. So, do you have any parting words, Kelly? Any words of wisdom for us all in these strange times?
Yeah, keep hanging tough, gang. Eventually, we will get back to bowling. I don't know about normalcy, but we'll get back to bowling. Just be smart individuals. Do what's asked of you and comply best you can. But stick with your family. Live each day as if it's your last, and just try to keep mining through this whole process. We will be back on the lanes again as a nation.
Thanks, Kelly. Okay, Dave. Well, thanks for your guest spots this week.
Anytime.
Appreciate it. I don't think Chris has got any more kids he needs to take to college, so he's used that excuse for getting out of it. So, yeah, we will see you soon. Give us a final plug about your shows, where we can catch up with them.
Yeah, sure. On Facebook Live, Monday and Friday, I do a show at 12 Eastern called A Nooner with Dave Lamont. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 10 a.m., I do a mini-me version of that called the Almost Daily Dave, about 5 to 10-minute commentary. And certainly hope you guys get a chance to tune into those. They, of course, doesn't cost you anything to watch.
Yep, that's one of our things that Chris likes. Go to our YouTube channel and click subscribe. Don't worry, it's free.
Exactly.
So
like Chris subscribed.
Thanks again, guys. We will see you next week. Yeah, Chris.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave.
God, I've run out of kids. All right, take care, guys. See you later.
Have a great one, guys.
Weekend.
Bye-bye.